Hey, Ecommerce Marketing Podcast listener, are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own referral program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
This message comes from our sponsor, Wix e-commerce, the industry-leading e-commerce platform with advanced online storefront features. Wix e-commerce is the complete solution for entrepreneurs, omni-channel retailers, and brands to launch, run, and scale their online stores successfully. Go to wix.com/e-commerce today and join over 600,000 active stores selling worldwide with Wix e-commerce. Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. I am your host, Arlen Robinson, and today we have a very special guest, Liat Karpel Gurwicz, who is head of e-commerce marketing at Wix.com. She leads growth and strategic marketing for the Wix e-commerce platform, which powers more than 700,000 online stores worldwide. In 2020, Wix sellers surpassed 5.4 billion in online transactions with 140% year-over-year growth in sales transaction and 114% year-over-year growth in overall sales revenue. In addition to driving the e-commerce marketing strategy at Wix, Liat also leads product marketing for the company's e-commerce hardware development and its payments platform. A seasoned branding and marketing expert, Liat previously headed up marketing for tech companies including Como, Conduit, and DB Motion. Welcome to the podcast, Liat.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, no problem. And I'm definitely excited to talk to you. This is quite a time we're in. And I know you guys being on the side of, I guess you could say, kind of making things happen for online businesses, providing that platform. I'm sure you guys have been really busy within the past year or two, with the COVID-19 shutdowns and everybody flocking online. So I can imagine it's been interesting for you guys.
Absolutely. I think, we feel super grateful to have been in a position where we were able to help support businesses and our users and help them figure out how to handle this year. I think the pandemic forced everyone to just adapt and shift in order to survive and in some cases even thrive. But definitely been a hustle for all of us.
Yeah, definitely has kept us all on our toes. Well, today I'm really excited to talk to you about our topic at hand, which today is going to be we're going to be talking about creating a cross-sell marketing strategy to drive your e-commerce sales, because that's really a hot topic these days, because I think businesses these days are always looking for ways to increase, their average order value, and get maximum benefit out of every customer. And I think all of us really know cross-selling is a great way to do it. And so we're going to really dive deep into some actionable tips on how businesses can do that and maximize, cross-selling. But before we do get into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and really how you did get into what you're doing today?
Sure. So I've been with Wix about 7 years now, so quite a while, but I've always worked in tech. I've done brand marketing, product marketing, strategic marketing for online SaaS platforms, B2B and B2C, my entire career. So this is what I do. Of course, it means I'm used to functioning in an online setting myself. My customers are always connected to our platforms through online, and we're selling online. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today. And I've been leading the e-commerce group at Wix for the past 2 years.
Okay, that's awesome. Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. And
Sure.
It's like you said, you're very familiar. You're not a newbie to the online space, so we know you're definitely going to be able to add a lot of value to not only our listeners but everyone that you guys deal with there on your end. But really, what I want to kind of start with the discussion today is, why don't we kind of start with really at the beginning with as far as really what is cross-selling and why is it really so essential when a business is looking to increase their average order value?
Sure. So I'll start, I think, just by talking about both upsell and cross-sell, because
Okay.
I find that a lot of businesses tend to confuse these.
Sure.
And it is important to kind of clarify the differences because we're going to use them in slightly different ways across the buyer journey. So upsell is when you try and get your customers to buy comparable but superior, more expensive products than the one they're considering. So, for example, if I had a burger place and you came in to get a burger, maybe I'd convince you to get the double cheeseburger instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then a cross-sell is when you try and get your customers to buy related or complementary products in addition to the ones that they're considering. So again, I have the burger joint, you want a burger, I give you fries along with the burger. So that's a cross-sell. And these two things are really important to think about when you're doing your sales strategy in how you're going to use them. Because, essentially you want to use them to get customers to spend more, buy more, increase that average order value. But you want to do it in a way that's providing value to your customer, not in a way that feels like a pesky sales strategy or you being pushy, but
Right.
you really understanding what they need.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And these days, if you're looking at just, even just, the big chains in the online space, one, I guess, example that I always think about, I always go back to, that really has kind of been a leader in the whole, I guess you could say, cross-selling and even upselling space that many people may be familiar with is GoDaddy. They always ring a bell when I think about cross-selling and upselling because, a lot of our listeners know that I've been around for a long time. We started operations about 20 years ago, and we've been a GoDaddy customers since our inception. Our first domain was registered through GoDaddy. And I recall even at the early stage, when they started to come up with ancillary products and services aside from the domain registration, they prominently, did the upsell and cross-selling. I mean, they they really went all out with it. And I mean, to an extent where I remember back in the day, I was like, wow, it was almost a little overwhelming. I mean, I think they're at a point right now where, of course, they've been able to fine tune it and, really get it down to a point where it's not too much. But I do recall that they were really leaders in doing that in the online world for quite a while. So when you talk about cross-selling and upselling, I do think about that as a great example. Now, for an e-commerce business, let's say, a business, maybe they're a startup, maybe they've been around for a little while. They're not really doing any cross-selling or upselling. Maybe they're selling their products. They're just really trying to keep things going and they don't really have anything in place. What are some really basic tactics to cross-sell as well as, upsell additional products or services?
Sure. So I think before you get started, make sure that you really understand that your customer base, you know what they value, what's important to them, what products they're buying. Look at all of your data. Look what similar customers from those segments bought, what they buy together. And this is going to allow you to really strategize how you're creating something that's valuable for them, that's compelling, that speaks to their needs and wants. And then off of that, start thinking about what the offers are going to be, right? You want to think about which products go together, which are related and get promoted as a cross-sell, which more expensive products maybe get promoted alongside other products as an upsell, and possibly which are getting bundled together. So we spoke about upsell, cross-sell, but bundling is kind of like the weird offspring of those two together, because you take like one main product, bundle some others, and give it for a better price than the products individually. But essentially think about how now you're going to group these products or put more expensive ones alongside others in a way that's valuable to customers. So maybe you want to recommend required accessories for proper use of a product. So imagine that I'm selling a laptop and you need a very specific charger that goes with that and it doesn't come with, you want to recommend that. You want to bundle related products so customers don't need to go around looking for components or accessories.
Right.
If you're bundling, you want to offer discounts so that you're encouraging immediate purchase of the bundle. And if you're bundling with a really expensive item, then maybe you want to give some free gifts in that bundle so that customers feel valued when they're making that more expensive purchase. And you can also even think about offering things like loyalty points if customers are purchasing more expensive or multiple items. So I would say in e-commerce, the most basic way that you're going to do an upsell or cross-sell is on your product page, where you're going to add related items. Mm-hmm. And if you're adding related items, you could do products customers like you actually bought, or products that customers like you also bought. Mm-hmm. Okay, and one of those was an upsell, one was the cross-sell, right? What customers actually bought, you're saying, hey, you're looking at this jacket, but don't you know we also have these other fancier jackets, different material jackets, whatever jackets, right? Mm-hmm. Or you're saying people who buy this jacket also want these shirts, these shoes, these hats, like whatever goes along with it. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you that from our network of stores, stores who display related items on their product pages actually get an average of 43% more sales transactions. Oh, wow. So that's a really basic way to make a huge increase in your sales using these strategies. And you can carry that through on your website all the way to the checkout or cart experience. Mm-hmm. But here is where we're going to start differentiating between an upsell and a cross-sell. So let's imagine that you came to my online store, you were looking at jackets, you found a jacket that you like, and now you go to cart and you're ready to check out. If I try to upsell you in that moment, so you're in the checkout process, and then I show you, hey, did you see these other fancier, more expensive jackets? I'm actually creating friction for you and confusing you because you've chosen what you wanted to buy. And now I'm confusing you at that critical point when you're about to make the purchase, right? And you're like, I don't know. Maybe I did want the other jacket. Maybe I want this jacket. Maybe I'll just go and have a coffee instead and not deal with this issue right now. On the other hand, if you try to do a cross-sell in that scenario, so imagine you choose your jacket, you come to checkout, and then I do a suggestion to you, something like, hey, did you also want to get this great lint roller for an extra $5? Right? And you're like, I really need a lint roller for this jacket. I don't have one at home. It's only $5. Yeah, sure. Let me add that into my cart now and check out. So that's a scenario where you need to be super sensitive to what you're offering your customer. It can be really effective if you do it well and correctly.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does sound like you do have to be a little bit strategic about it, whether you're upselling and cross-selling, because you know, like you said, you don't want to overwhelm the customer. That's the last thing you want to do. So as far as the upsell is concerned, like you said, somebody, maybe already in the cart, they're purchasing, let's say, a jacket, let's say a leather jacket or whatever. And then you're looking to upsell them maybe a higher end version of that. That could be a little questionable because, it's getting somebody at another decision-making point where they're, all right, did I purchase the right thing? Do I want to get that other jacket? Do I have enough money? So, it's a fine line because I think if you do that, if you cross or upsell the wrong item, you can tend to put the buyer in a position where they have too many decisions they have to make, where it's not a clear path to the confirmation of that purchase. And so that makes a lot of sense. So I think you do have to be strategic. And like you said in your example, the lint roller for the, for that item, a perfect cross sell where it's a little bit more, $5 more. That's not going to, most people, of course, that's not going to break their bank. They could easily, add that on. It could work for the jacket that they're purchasing or even items that they have. So that's something reasonable. And that little extra amount definitely adds to the order value. It's just a smaller item. So that makes a lot of sense. One thing, though, I was thinking about when you talked about this process is, and I know a lot of our listeners are wondering as well, is really how do you make all of this happen? Whether they're on a Wix platform, like you guys' platform, whether they're on any platform, whether it's Shopify, BigCommerce, whatever the platform is, how do you make all of this happen? How do you implement cross-selling and upselling? What's the typical way to do it?
Sure. So I think there's the part that you do that's your homework, right? Which is where you're reviewing all of that sales data, all of your product catalog, thinking about what your customers want, and then planning how these things are going to work together.
Right.
You definitely want to look for a platform, and most good e-commerce platforms are going to give you tools so that you're able to add these things into your storefront, whether it's things like related items or like, pop-ups or sliders that come in along the way, or these additions to your checkout. Sometimes you can look for apps in the app markets of these platforms, certainly in ours, where you're also going to find additional ways that you can do that. So there are a lot of tools out there. But again, going back to that really basic example I gave you of related items on your product page, that's, I think the most basic form of doing it, pretty standard on e-commerce platforms. And it's already going to give you that really big increase. And then there are other things you can think about doing. So while we're still in the website setting, before we get to like the retention part of it and, once a customer goes away, but one of the things that I love recommending is live chat. So, when you're in e-commerce, unlike a brick and mortar setting, your customers don't get to engage directly with you as a business owner or your staff or your products or your store. If I had a retail store and you walked in through the door, I'd be like, "Hi, how are you today? What can I help you with?" And you said to me, "My friend's getting married this weekend. I really need a nice jacket." And then we walk around the store together and I show you the jackets and you try them on and you feel them. And in an e-commerce setting, your website has to do that work for your business. So you want to make sure that you're giving the customer all of the information, right? A lot of times people say to me, "Yeah, but like cross-sell and upsell, maybe in like the example you initially said to me, it's just about getting customers to buy more." And I keep going back to that value. It's not, of course, we want to increase the revenue there, but you want to do it in a way that's really helping the customer, right? If they're browsing, they came to your website, maybe they saw an ad, landed on a product page for this jacket. They don't necessarily know you or your brand. They don't know what else you have in your product catalog. You want to help them easily browse, easily understand what products you have, find all the elements that they need for their needs in a great way. So one of the things I always suggest is use live chat on your website, right? That same way that I would walk up to you and go, "Hey, how are you today?" You can do that on the website.
Right.
And here we see in our network of stores, stores that have live chat usually get 8 to 12 times higher revenue. So that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And those who are actually actively recommending products to customers in the chat, so doing that upsell, cross-sell, generate 71% more sales. So that is huge. That is a crazy number. And if you think about the advantage that you have in an e-commerce setting, when you walked into my brick and mortar store, I don't know anything about your history with my business. I don't know what you bought last week or last month or last year. When you're on my website and you start chatting with me, if you're an existing customer, I can go into your sales history with me and see, "Oh, this is your size. Oh, these are the products that you like. Oh, usually when customers buy this product, they also buy these products." And then I can give you really great, tailored, customized service. Mm-hmm. So, it just when you connect with your customer in that key stage of their shopping journey, you get these little windows of opportunity to upsell and cross-sell because you start to understand what it is that they need and want. Mm-hmm. But of course, like any cross-sell and upsell, make sure you're being sensitive to your users' needs and, your promotions should be subtle and offers should be value-driven.
Yeah, very, very true. And I'm glad that you mentioned the example of the live chat, because I think a lot of times businesses, don't utilize the live chat to its fullest potential. I think a lot of times these days businesses, they throw on the live chat app on their site just because they think it's something you got to have. Every business has a live chat. Well, from my experience, a lot of, startup and young businesses, a lot of times it's not utilized effectively. It's not manned properly. It takes a while to get a response. But I think you really nailed it. It's very important because you're interacting with someone just as if they were walking into your establishment, walking up and down the aisles. It's the same type of thing. You're approaching them. Most of these chats have the proactive feature where you can see who's at the site, and then you can pop something up and, ask them, how you may help, and then further get information. I think one of the key things a lot of businesses also don't realize is it's an excellent data gathering tool. So even if you're not really ready for the cross-selling, upselling, and putting that out there, you can use your chat reps to gather data to find out really what are people looking for, what types of items are they asking about, and then that can really help you, direct your upselling and cross-selling. Which really kind of leads me to my next question, and I'm circling back to my example from the beginning of GoDaddy. As we already kind of mentioned, it really kind of is a fine line when you're doing this cross-selling and upselling, because the main thing is you want to make sure somebody gets through the checkout process as smoothly and as quickly as possible, because, shopping cart abandonment is a thing. It is a big thing these days. There's a lot of people that go on, put items in their cart, and then for whatever reason they jump away. And so I think a lot of times people are a little bit leery of doing things in that whole checkout process that's going to dissuade people from kind of fully pulling the trigger. And so how do you really, what is the fine line? Because like I said, in that example, when I think about some 20 odd years ago, I do remember there were certain points, and this is really way back when GoDaddy was at the early stages of their business. When they had their other ancillary products, they were super aggressive with the upselling. I remember checking out, and I mean, you almost had to go through 4 or 5 different pages of other products that you either had to say yes to, add to your cart, or no thanks. And it was a little overwhelming. I hung in there because I thought they were still a great company, but it did present a bit of friction. So, how do you know when enough is enough as far as what you're presenting?
Right. So I think the core of it there is, every product is a little different, every business is a little different, but going back to understanding at what stage your customer is. Are they still in the decision-making process? Are they browsing? Are they shopping? So like category pages, product pages, the home page, certainly, those are great places to be doing upsell and cross-sell, because your customer is still actively moving around your store and figuring out what they need. And then once they start transitioning into that checkout process, then you want to be much more sensitive and make sure that you're really only suggesting things that you think are critical for their purchase. So, for example, if you're buying that laptop and you have to have a certain cable that goes along with it, and you see that the customer didn't take one, you might want to suggest that to them, right? Because maybe they didn't realize that they need it. And you don't want the customer to even be upset or disappointed that they didn't get all of the elements that they needed to use that product. So as long as you're doing it based on their needs and being sensitive, then I think that you should be in good shape. You definitely want to keep looking at all of your metrics and data and see where you have drop points, and then go and take a look at what's going on there and see if you need to make some adjustments. And then in terms of like the abandoned carts, I think that there's some basic things that every business should be doing, like creating automations for recovering abandoned carts. I think it's something like 70% get abandoned, and it's for many reasons. Customers either have price sensitivity, like they want the item, but maybe it's too expensive. They could also still be looking for that perfect item, like they're not sure that's the one they want. Or maybe life just got in the way and they got distracted and stepped away. So when you're thinking about sending those automations to them to remind them about the items they left in their cart, you can also think about maybe offering a discount or suggesting other items to go along with it, things that could remove some of those barriers. And setting up those automations are just, it's something that always works for your business. So on that basic automation, we see that stores who add this increase sales up to 29%. Wow. That's something you set up once, and then it just keeps working for your business. So a really important tool to use and to think about. But there are lots of other automations that you can create. So, for example, let's say you sell a product that is a consumable that runs out. So maybe you sell cosmetics. And I bought a hand cream, and you know that hand cream typically lasts 30 days. So send me an email 5 days, after 25 days saying, your hand cream's about to run out. Here's a coupon if you want to get another one. And then you're providing value to me. You're maybe reminding me that I needed to get that product, and you're being sensitive to my needs. So there are lots of automations you can set up based on your products, and also, go and look at your customer data, see at which point customers typically make a second purchase, what are they typically purchasing, and then use that to create the right automations for your customers and audience.
Okay, great. Those are some awesome tips, and I appreciate that, especially the automation piece to it, because you got to handle those things like the abandonment, and if you don't have things in place, then businesses are really just kind of leaving cash on the table if you don't take care of that right away. It's definitely a lot of things that you can do, as you were mentioning, to be strategic about the whole process. One thing I wanted to get to as we get ready to wrap things up. I'm a huge advocate, as my listeners know, of looking at case studies and examples of companies that are successful. And so, in your experience, whether they're large businesses or small businesses, what are some e-commerce businesses that you've seen that have done a great job with cross-selling and upselling? And what specific things have they done to be successful with it?
Sure. So, one business that I really love that does some great cross-selling on their website is a store called Ruby Love. They sell period and underwear and swimwear, and they do bundles. First of all, they have really great bundles. Some of those bundles are based on specific types of customers, and some of those bundles are just based on similar products that usually get bought together. They, of course, use all of the related items on their pages, but they have a really smart checkout cross-sell. So they have this little slider that comes in and suggests additional products to you in the checkout.
Okay.
But they've done that thinking. You see that it's really smart. They only suggest products to you that need to go with other products. So, for example, if you buy the underwear, then they suggest the pads that go along with it. So it's very subtle, but very value driven. So that's one website to check out that does some cool stuff. Another website that I really love is Colin Canary. So I really love candles. It's usually my example. Today we did fashion, but usually I just talk about let's sell candles, scented candles, because that's what I want to buy online. So first of all, they create bundles that are seasonal. So for example, they just did one for Easter. I'm sure they have a Mother's Day one coming out. And then they create these bundles of unique scented candles that you can only get as a bundle. And they're a limited time. So there's that FOMO around it. You can't just buy the one scent. You have to they come in like trios. So that's a cool way of doing an upsell. And there is huge demand for it. They always sell out of their bundles. And they also have something in the cart that they do that's really interesting. You can even test it out if you go on their website. So if you add a candle, you go to the cart, and you're getting ready to check out, they ask you if that item is a gift. There's just like a little checkbox there. And if you say it's a gift, then they ask you if you want to add a card for $5, and you can actually type in your message for the card that goes along with that gift and just add it as you check out. So that's another example of a really smart cross-sell where they're giving you value. They understand that their customers are often buying these candles as gifts, and they're giving you an extra value there on the purchase. So those are some really cool things that they do. Colin Canary actually also have a really smart email automation that they put up. So they know that their candles usually burn for around 3 months. So close to the 3-month mark, they send you out this automated email that gives you a discount for your next purchase. So that's really cool. And then something that we didn't touch on, but we probably should, is if you want to use just like newsletters and blast offers. So here you always want to make sure that, you probably experience some of these where you just get these like random emails or too many and feel annoyed. So you want to make sure that you're really segmenting your customer groups and you're only sending them relevant offers to them. So if we go back to that example of you buying a jacket from me, If you were to get an email from me offering you another jacket a week later, you probably wouldn't want it because you just purchased a jacket. And even worse, if I sent you an email offering you 50% off the jacket you just bought, then you would be super annoyed with both me and also yourself for buying this jacket and probably wouldn't buy anything else from me anymore. Right. So you want to make sure that you understand who your customer is and send them a relevant offer. So there's a website called Forge to Table. They sell Japanese handcrafted chef's knives.
Okay.
And they do really great newsletters and like blasts. So depending on what you buy from them, they make these relevant recommendations to you as either they get in like new stock or additional items that go along with whatever it is that you purchase. So if you like cleavers and they have cleaver accessories, they send you those. If you buy from a specific line of metal and they get additional products, they'll send you those. So they're just really smart in understanding what it is that their customers like and then sending them relevant offers and not just like blasting out whatever random products on the site.
Gotcha. Those are some great examples. And just to recap, the first one was rubylove.com, I believe you said.
Yeah,
colon Canary, and then also Forge to Table, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, great. We'll definitely have those links also in the show notes. And I appreciate you mentioning those because, these days, there's a lot of companies doing some really creative things. I'm not to say that you need to go on there and copy exactly everything that they're doing. You can take a look at it and get some inspiration for your business. You're not going to be able to do exactly what they've done because, of course, those businesses have a specific product, they have specific customers. And so, what they're doing may work for them, but it may not work for you. But the general idea of how they're doing it, the cross-selling, the upselling, you can get a lot of ideas by checking them out, maybe just going on there, maybe even just purchasing something small just so you can see what they do, how they present you, at the checkout. It's a great thing. And then I appreciate you mentioning the newsletter piece because that is also a very important piece when upselling. The upselling part does not always have to be at checkout. It can be done later, like you mentioned in the Colon Canary example with the candles. They know that their candles are going to burn out in about 3 months. So they have a, kind of a ticker going on for every customer to send out that automated email to see, okay, would you be interested in these candles now? And so they're very important to note that, it does not always have to be done right there at checkout. So it can be done at various points. So that is awesome, Liat. I really appreciate you coming on. I have definitely learned a ton, and I hope our listeners have as well, because as we've seen, this is something that I think cross-selling and upselling, I think it's definitely something that every e-commerce business needs to analyze for their business and see how they can implement it in some form or fashion. You may not be able to do it the same way other businesses are doing it, but I think there's a way you can do it to help increase your average order value, your overall sales. And it's a great way to do it. Lastly, before we let you go, I'm always, I have my final question, which I'm always interested to know about people, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think our listeners would be interested to know.
Sure. So, I guess it's not too much of a secret if anyone ever comes across any of my Twitter channels or whatever. I buy a lot of stuff online. Okay. And especially, I get to know obviously a lot of e-commerce businesses in what I do. And I like to shop online. So the two kind of make for a dangerous combination. So I think like one of the things that I'm trying to do now is figure out also how I'm a more conscientious shopper and smarter about what I do. So like one of the worst things that I did during the pandemic, because I was ordering a lot of stuff online and obviously you couldn't go a lot of places. So there's this bagel store that I really like and I couldn't go and buy the bagels. So I ordered frozen bagels. But I ordered 36 frozen bagels, which came in a very gigantic box that ended up taking over most of our freezer. And my family Did not appreciate that at all. Um, so now I've been noticing a lot how I may be subscribed for products that I want to renew.
Mm,
So I'm more of a subscriber these days than
okay.
buy a giant box
Mm.
of freezer bagels. But we did eat them all, so I guess that's good news.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm guilty of it as well, as far as purchasing a lot online, and I think I fall in the same boat. I do need to be a little bit more conscientious when I buy, and I'm glad you mentioned that. The whole subscription model is something that also a lot of e-commerce businesses have done and offered the automatic, refill option, where after a month or so they'll charge you again and then send you a resupply of whatever it is. And so, yeah, rather than taking up half of your freezer and 36
Yeah,
bagels.
don't do that unless you have
Yeah,
another freezer. Don't do that.
right, exactly. So yeah, that's a subscription is a great way to do it, and it's definitely a lot more easier to handle on your end when you're getting it as you need it, for sure. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that story, and definitely thank you for joining us today on the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, Leah. But before we do let you go, if any of our listeners want to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about upselling, cross-selling, or anything about e-commerce marketing, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. So you can reach me on Twitter. My handle is at Liat Karpel, Karpl. I'm on LinkedIn, so wherever you can just reach out. I'm always happy to talk e-commerce or bagels or candles.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. We'll definitely encourage our listeners to look you up on Twitter and LinkedIn, and pick your brain anymore as well. Well, thanks for sharing that, Leah, and we definitely appreciate you coming on today onto the e-commerce marketing podcast.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It was super fun.
No problem. Thank you.